Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Math Puzzle Crash Course. We've got a problem here that I've seen show up quite a bit online. Actually, I think I did a video on this one like over a year ago, but I wanted to go back and redo it a little bit, maybe have a little bit better graphics than before. But this problem is 50 plus 50 minus 25 times 0 plus 2 plus 2. Now, if you'd like to pause the video, we'll come back and work this out together. And then I'm going to go on a little bit and talk about some of the common wrong answers and how people are getting those. If you'd like to pause it, you may already know the answer, which is great, but you can pause it. We'll come right back. Okay, so if you remember your order of operations, which is something that really everybody's been taught, but I see a lot of people do forget over the years. But your multiplication has precedence over addition and subtraction. And if you're just really used to adding numbers and subtracting numbers, like, adding up things in your checkbook, subtracting items out of your checkbook, you may not be as used to working expressions out that mix addition, subtraction, and multiplication. I can understand why a lot of people have forgotten this, but you do the multiplication first, and I'll probably say it a few times through the video, but multiplication is nothing more than repeated addition. So it's kind of a shorthand way of writing. When you say 25 times 0, it's the same thing as adding 25 zeros. Now, of course, in this case, we have a minus 25 times 0, so we're basically subtracting 25 zeros when we're doing this. So it's the 25 times 0 is equivalent to 25 zeros being added up. So here, what we've got is we do the multiplication first. 25 times 0 is 0. Now remember, we have the minus sign in front of it, so it's 50 plus 50 minus 0 plus 2 plus 2. Well, I mean, it's pretty easy from here. It's just all addition and subtraction from this point on. So I'd kind of expect most people to get the correct answer. You add the 50 and the 50 together here, and you'll get 100. 100 minus 0 plus 2 plus 2. Well, what does that equal? Well, 100 minus 0 plus 2 plus 2. 100 minus 0 is still 100. 100 plus 2 plus 2 is 104. So your correct answer would be 104. Now again, I mentioned this before, and I've got a lot of other videos covering the topic in more detail. But the order of operations convention applies here um, because we have mixed operations. We have a mixture of addition, subtraction, multiplication. That's really all you need. Some people mistakenly think, well, the order of operations doesn't apply because this isn't algebra. Well, that has nothing to do with it. It can be algebraic, non-algebraic. It's just you have to have an expression or an equation that has mixed operations. Um, if you have addition and subtraction, it's no big deal because addition and subtraction have equal precedence. It would never matter what order you add or subtract the numbers, but when you throw multiplication or even division in, that's when you've really got to remember your order of operations. And again, multiplication has precedence over addition and subtraction. And like I've said it before, multiplication is repeated addition. And it doesn't matter where the multiplication shows up, within this expression or equation, it's still always solved first. And remember, there are some acronyms out there which sometimes confuse a lot of people, but in North America, it's typically PEMDAS, which is parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. But the big mistake a lot of people make is they think, well, the order of the letters determines the order that you solve everything, and that's not really true. It's generally right, but um, the M and the D, it doesn't matter the order. Multiplication and division have equal precedence. Division is nothing more than multiplying by a reciprocal. So multiplication and division have equal precedence, and you would solve those left to right. Addition and subtraction, same thing. Addition and subtraction have equal precedence. Doesn't matter what order you solve those in. Subtraction is the same thing as adding a negative number. So it's basically the same operation, adding and subtracting. And a lot of people will say, well, you've got, in the UK they use BODMAS, so they must be doing the division before multiplication because the D is before the M. But once again, the multiplication and division have equal precedence. They could have easily wrote that out and called it BOMDAS. It doesn't really matter. The truth is that PEMDAS, BODMAS, BEDMAS, BIDMAS all give the same answer. You get the same answer of 104 no matter which one of these you use. Now, some other countries use BEDMAS. The biggest difference is um, in the UK, instead of calling these parentheses, they use the word brackets. Instead of the E for exponents, they use O for orders. And orders is actually kind of a little better term in my opinion. It's kind of a generic term, but it basically represents anything that would be like repeated multiplication. That could be exponents, but then it also could be things like factorials or square roots. And then you have BEDMAS, where again they're using brackets and they're using the word exponent, so no big deal. And then BIDMAS, I believe the I is indices, and I'm not really as familiar with what all countries use the BEDMAS and BIDMAS, but basically different English-speaking countries will use, maybe a different acronym. But again, they all give the same answer, so there's really no difference there. Again, multiplication is repeated addition. 25 times 0 is the same thing as adding 25 zeros. So, again, here I'm showing, I could replace this minus 25 times 0 and just, I could have my negative sign here and then add 25 zeros. I've got them in parentheses because the negative sign goes to all the zeros here, but there's really no difference. If you add and subtract all this up, you'll still get 104. Because there's no difference between 25 times 0 and me writing it out this way. But which looks easier to write out? Of course, that's why I keep calling multiplication shorthand for repeated addition, because it's a lot easier to write than adding 25 zeros. Now, there are some common wrong answers. I've seen this problem show up online a lot, and there's a few common incorrect answers that people will swear by, but they are incorrect. 4 is probably the most common incorrect answer that I've seen. And I hate to burst your bubble, but that is wrong. And I'll see a lot of people say, well, back in my day, we were taught to solve left to right, or back in my day, we had to have parentheses or you just solve left to right. And again, that's all false because, multiplication has precedence over addition and subtraction with or without parentheses. Putting parentheses around this putting parentheses around the multiplication is redundant. You can do it if you want to, but that multiplication still has precedence. The people that get 4, too many people have forgotten the order of operations. And what they're doing is they're solving left to right. They're adding 50 plus 50 and getting 100. And then they're trying to say, well, 100 minus 25 is 75. And then 75 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 2 equals 4. And I'll see a lot of people say, well, anything times 0 is 0. And 0 plus 2 is 4. So that's the answer. But that's wrong. But yeah, anything times 0 is 0. That's the only correct statement they've made. But what they've forgotten is the multiplication has to be done first. And that's regardless of parentheses. The parentheses around the multiplication, again, would be redundant. 79 is not quite as common, but it is a wrong answer I've seen show up quite a bit. The people that get 79, they've also forgotten the order of operations, just like the people who are answering 4. But the second problem these people have is they've also forgotten how to multiply by 0. And this one really shocks me. Um, Honestly, this one really floored me, the number of adults who have forgotten how to do this. To me, it seems obvious, but a 25 times 0 is 0. 0 times 25 is 0. Um, 25 plus 0 would be 25. 0 plus 25 equals 25. And I think there's a combination of things happening here. Some people are confusing addition and multiplication. If 25 times 0 would equal 25, then what do you suppose 25 times 1 equals? 25 times 1 can't be 25 if 25 times 0 is 25. That really doesn't make sense. And I've seen some people, and I don't know where this comes from, but I've seen several people say this, that anything times 0 is still the number, but 0 times a number gives you 0. And that's completely bogus also. Anybody who understands, the associative property of multiplication knows that 2 times 5 is 10, 5 times 2 is 10, right? 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 2 is also 6. So the same is true when you have 0 in here. 25 times 0 is 0. 0 times 25 is 0. Because once again, remember what multiplication is. Multiplication is repeated addition. Whether, if I say 25 times 0, that's the same thing as adding up 25 zeros. I could add a million zeros. I could add a billion zeros. They still equal 0. When I say 0 times 25, I'm multiplying 0 times 25. That is still 0. So there's a lot of confusion on that one. And I know I spent a little bit more time on it, but if you've seen the number of people that answer 79 like I have, there is some forgetfulness around multiplying by 0. Now this last one here is a real puzzler to me. Some people, not as many, but this is probably the least answered wrong answer, but 96 is also wrong. And I'll see people do this, especially it's confusing. Sometimes they'll start quoting things. They'll say PEMDAS, and they'll say, well, addition comes before subtraction. But then what they end up doing is what they're doing is completely wrong. They're confused they're really confused about mixing addition with subtraction. I mean, this is really pretty basic. We already talked about, the fact that let me get my pointer back. We already talked about the fact that 25 times 0 is 0. So it's 50 plus 50 minus 0 plus 2 plus 2. That's obviously equal to 104. Now, the people that are getting 96, the thing I don't think they're understanding, somehow they're trying to apply this minus sign, they're trying to apply this negative sign to not only to the 0, but to the 2 plus 2. Now, I and then I've heard people use this excuse that, well, PEMDAS says PEMDAS, so, the last two things, it's addition, then subtraction. So I think, now, somebody that gets 96 as an answer probably needs to explain this to me, because it kind of hurts my head doing this, but I think what they're doing is that they're adding 2 plus 2 and getting 4 here, I guess. And then they're taking mine. This still really doesn't make sense. What they're doing does not make sense because even if you do that, oh, I know what they're probably doing. Then they're taking 0 plus 4, like this, right? 0 plus 4 and getting 4, and then saying, well, subtraction's last now. That's what it is. So then they're taking the negative sign, saying minus 4. So this is the convoluted thing I think they're doing. That's the first time that that's really become obvious to me, like what they're doing. But that's completely wrong. That's completely wrong. Once again, addition and subtraction have equal precedence. Subtraction is the same thing as adding a negative number. In order to get 96 as an answer, you would have to have parentheses around 0 plus 2 plus 2, because then that means the minus sign then is distributed throughout all three of these numbers. So it'd be minus 0, minus 2, minus 2. Then you would get 96. But yeah, what they're doing is very strange. They're adding 2 plus 2, adding it to the 0. Or, I mean, they could be going left to right and saying, 0 plus 2 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4, and then taking the minus sign to the whole 4. Because they're trying to force in their mind, they're trying to force addition before subtraction. Again, this is why I really don't like the acronyms at all, because the acronyms often get confused. They get interpreted as a six-step checklist. It's not a six-step checklist. There's only four steps. It's, we're going to use PEMDAS as an example, because I'm in North America, and it's you got parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division left to right. Multiplication and division have equal precedence. Whichever one you have first, you do that first. Addition and subtraction have equal precedence, and you just solve them. You go, you don't even have to go left to right, but you got to keep the signs in front of the right numbers. So yeah, that 96 was the one that just really confused me, like what they were doing. But almost every person that claims 96 starts trying to cite PEMDAS as the reason, but they're thinking it's a six-step checklist, which is wrong. And remember also, if I don't have parentheses and I don't have exponents, it doesn't mean you throw away the order of operations. And if you're using BODMAS, same thing. If you don't have brackets, you don't have orders, you move on to multiplication and division and look for those. If you have those are next in priority. You don't skip you don't skip steps. You don't skip the order of operations. You still do it because multiplication is still repeated addition. It needs to be solved first. And I mean, and again, another way you could have written this out, it's the same thing. This is the same problem. I could have written this minus 25 times 0 plus 50 plus 50 plus 2 plus 2. It's still 104. Same answer. Now, I will see people also say, well, it's 4 because I typed it into my calculator, and my calculator told me it was 4. Well, not necessarily a good thing to do here, guys. And I'm gonna do this, um, hopefully, um, online here as well. This is a Windows machine that I've got, and if I normally this calculator on a Windows computer, the standard mode calculator works a lot like your Dollar Tree calculator, your dollar store calculator, the $1 calculator you bought at the store. And when I think that's what a lot of people are using. But these things work in what's called immediate execution mode. So, I mean, you could try to enter it in 50 plus 50 minus. Now, see what it did? It already added those up. Minus 25 times 0 plus 2 equals. Now, that's the wrong answer. But look at what's up here. It's just got 2 plus 2 equals 4. The reason, and I'd have to go into more detail on calculators, and I have a video. I'm going to put the link in the description notes with some of the other stuff. But these calculators use what's called immediate execution mode. They're not meant in this mode to allow you to type in a whole expression with mixed operations because it's processing each operation individually. This is great for adding and subtracting numbers, but it's not so good when you're mixing operations. It's not to say you can't use this type of a calculator. You could, but you'd have to enter the numbers in a lot like what you see here, where I've got minus 25 times 0 plus 50 plus 50 plus 2 plus 2. And if you did it that way, you'd end up with the right answer of 104. But calculators have several different ways to operate depending on the calculator. You know, the very cheap dollar store calculators, they don't have what's called an internal stack chain, so they don't have the memory to process the order of operations. And that's, you know, a lot of your older, inexpensive calculators, that's how they work. And it was up to you to understand the order of operations and to make sure that you did the multiplication first or the division first in whatever case it was. Now, you can switch a calculator over. This calculator is on a Windows 11 machine. I can switch that to scientific mode, and I can go 50 plus 50 minus 25 times 0. Now, look at this already. You can see that it's keeping all that information, right? Plus 2 plus 2. See that? If you look at what's being typed in, it's still there. If you looked at what I was doing on the standard mode calculator, that was not the case. Now I hit the equal sign, you get 104, which is the correct answer. This is because this calculator is using it's using expression mode, which allows you to enter in an entire expression, then hit the equals key once and you'll get the right answer of 104. Now, I've seen people take scientific calculators or calculators that do have expression mode entry, and I've seen them hit the equal sign after everything, which is kind of mind-boggling to me. I mean, they'll actually sit on a calculator and type 50 plus 50 equals minus 25 equals times 0 equals plus 2 equals plus 2 equals. Well, of course you're going to get the wrong answer doing that because that's not what was written. There's only one equal sign. It's at the very end of the expression. So again, I hope this has been helpful. I know this video went way long, but I'm trying to tie up a lot of loose ends because I know what a lot of the arguments are on these. I've seen, you know, people start to say, well, it's 4 because my calculator said so. You know, I've seen the people that get 79 try to tell me that a number times 0 is still the number. You know, there's a lot of very common arguments that are all incorrect. So I wanted to try to hit on those just in case, you know, anybody out there is thinking that 479 or 96 was the right answer. And I wanted to show you why it's not. But of course, if you got this in the first 5 seconds, yeah, absolutely. You didn't need to watch 15, 20 minutes of this video, and I understand that. But, you know, I'm trying to gear some of this stuff towards people who are really struggling with it. You know, I get it. There's a lot of adults out there that are really struggling with some of the basic mathematics. And it could just be that, hey, you haven't used it for a very long time. But, you know, I want to dispel some of the myths out there. It's not that bad. I just want to kind of go through it and help people out. So I hope the video has been helpful for somebody out there at least. If so, you know, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. All that really helps. I'd like to keep making some more videos. Hopefully get some better graphics in here and get some more things going. But I hope this has been helpful to people, and I look forward to seeing everybody in a future video. Take care and have a great day.